Good morning. A few hours from now, March Madness will officially begin. Although, for anyone who has walked the Capitol Hill halls in the last few days, the madness seems to have already started. Unfortunately, my alma mater, Boston College, missed the tournament. So since I cannot root for my home team, today I will root for HomeStar. Instead of watching players score buckets by banking the ball off the backboard window, today we'll talk about families banking bucks through energy-efficient windows. And I can guarantee one thing. The HomeStar program will give people a much better return on investment than filling out an NCAA bracket. HomeStar is our new three-point play for American families during this economic recovery. 1, it saves energy. 2, it saves money. 3, it creates jobs. So what is HomeStar? It is a program designed to help every homeowner looking for a little extra help to make their home more efficient by saving energy. The program will provide homeowners rebates for purchasing and installing more efficient windows, doors, insulation, and other home improvements that will cut energy bills while jump-starting our manufacturing and labor sectors. HomeStar was designed to give customers their rebates quickly and reimburse contractors within 30 days. It will, under my direction, also include a do-it-yourself provision that allows people to receive rebates for buying and installing insulation materials without going through a contractor. HomeStar was designed to reduce energy costs in several ways. Homeowners receive rebates on products and installation. They may also benefit from a loan program to offset the remaining cost of the project. Finally, homeowners save on reduced heating and cooling costs. HomeStar efficiency upgrades are estimated to save homeowners over $1 billion of home energy expenses in 2011 and $9.2 billion over 10 years. And finally, HomeStar was designed to help American workers get back on their feet through energy-efficient construction and manufacturing jobs. The products in the Silver Star portion of the bill are largely manufactured in the United States. Creating a consumer market for these products through HomeStar will help save and create approximately 168,000 jobs in the next 10 years. Most of these jobs will be available in the next 2 years. That's why there is such a broad support for HomeStar. Fortune 500 companies, small contractors, environmental advocates, and lumber manufacturers are just some of the organizations that have supported HomeStar. I would be remiss if I did not mention the hard work of my colleague Peter Welsh, who has been a champion of HomeStar and a long-time supporter of building efficiency, as evidenced by his provision in the Waxman-Markey legislation that passed the House last June. Right now, we don't know who will win March Madness. We do know that HomeStar is a winning program for hundreds of thousands of American workers, families, and our ongoing efforts to spur a lasting, sustainable economic recovery through clean energy jobs and technologies. That completes the opening statement of the Chair. We now turn and recognize the ranking member, the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Upton.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and sorry that your Boston College team didn't make it. Neither did my Wolverines. Maybe we could get the majority leader to do a resolution like he did for Maryland on the House floor, complimenting them on a wonderful season, even though they didn't win the ACC tournament like we did yesterday.
But they're in the tournament.
Not the Wolverines.
No, but I mean the Terrapins are in the tournament.
They're in, but they didn't win the ACC. They lost the first game of the tournament. But we'll see how you fill out your bracket.
But they're still alive. They're more like the HomeStar program than Boston College.
We'll see how far they go.
Okay.
Appreciate the hearing today, and I've always been a proponent of all of the above energy policy. All of the above isn't just about all sources of energy. It also includes conservation and energy conservation. Upgrading energy efficiency in homes clearly is the low-hanging fruit in reducing overall energy demand and has the added benefit of directly lowering home energy bills, which is of critical importance for working families that are struggling to get by. I support energy efficiency, and there are bipartisan ways to create incentives for home energy efficiency upgrades, but I'm not sure that this legislation fits that bill. The HomeStar legislation that we're looking today could prove to be far too expensive at a time of massive budget deficits and runaway spending. We don't know what the cost will be because the bill, as you know, is written as a blank check to the appropriators, such sums as may be necessary, as the legislation states. So how much are we talking about? Is it $6 billion? Is it $20 billion? It could be more. I don't support signing a blank check. With all due respect to the Department of Energy, they are not equipped to run a program of this magnitude, regardless of whether it's $1 billion or $20 billion. According to the GAO, only 9,100 of a planned 593,000 homes were weatherized this last year. 9,100 out of 593,000. That's more than a rounding error. In my home state of Michigan, 385 homes were weatherized in 2009 at a cost of $4 million. So there's still another $240 million left unspent in the stimulus package that was passed last year. Nationally, about $522 million in stimulus funds have been spent so far on weatherization. That's about 10% of the $5 billion set aside. Why are we going to throw countless billions on top of that? Clearly, more money is not the answer or the issue. Besides the runaway spending and DOE's inability to administer the first $5 billion allocated, there are other problems as well. Good policy would suggest a HomeStar-type program should complement state-regulated energy efficiency programs, not disrupt them. Existing energy efficiency programs are the best way to distribute funding with the greatest level of quality assurance, not a giant new government bureaucracy. This legislation, as I look at it, does pick winners and losers, both technology winners and losers and labor winners and losers. That's not the job of this body as we seek to promote energy efficiency. It seems to me that many energy-efficient technologies were left off the list solely because their manufacturers weren't represented in the HomeStar coalition. That's not necessarily the American way. American people have grown quite tired of these backroom deals, and I hope that we can remedy the situation when we mark up the bill, perhaps as early next week. I'd also note that the President's budget called for a freeze in spending. So where does that fit in when you look at a new $23 billion program? We in the Congress now have passed pay-go legislation. Where are the offsets? I'm not sure that this is the best answer, and I yield back my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania. I'm sorry. The chair recognizes the chairman emeritus of our committee, Mr. Dingell.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for holding this important hearing today. I'm pleased that the subcommittee is setting forth an aggressive agenda for the HomeStar program. I want to take a moment to welcome Larry Lassiter from Masco Home Services. Welcome, Larry. Masco is headquartered in Taylor, Michigan, and is an outstanding corporate citizen of the state of Michigan. So welcome to you, Mr. Lassiter, and we look forward to your testimony. Also, Governor Engler, it's a pleasure to see you this morning. HomeStar holds much promise in three important areas. First and foremost, it will create jobs. Second, it will lead to greater residential energy efficiency. Third, it has the potential to lead to significant consumer savings. In terms of jobs, my home state of Michigan is in a desperate state. Our current unemployment rate is 14.3%, and Wayne County, my home county, has an unemployment rate of 15.7%. Between 2001 and 2009, Michigan lost nearly 43% of its construction jobs. The bottom line, Mr. Chairman, we need jobs, and we need them desperately. This is a program which has the potential to put 168,000 workers back on the job. Not only will this help individual workers, but it will also help small businesses, a portion of our economy which has been particularly hard hit. We cannot afford not to move forward. According to HomeStar Coalition, the energy efficiency gains have the potential to equal the removal of 615,000 automobiles from the road. This is particularly important since the Senate has yet to act on broader climate change legislation. Finally, the program will be of great benefit to homeowners. It could save families as much as $9.4 billion in energy costs over the next 10 years. In addition, it makes homes more valuable. In these economic times, these increased savings and increased home values cannot be underestimated. Mr. Chairman, HomeStar follows on the heels of the wildly successful Cash for Clunkers program, in which the federal government provided consumer vouchers to purchase new, more fuel-efficient vehicles. The initial allocation of $1 billion was exhausted very quickly, and we had to secure an additional $2 billion in funding for the program. Cash for Clunkers was responsible for the sale of nearly 700,000 new vehicles in the United States during its run, and it added nearly 1% to the third quarter gross domestic product growth. Cash for Clunkers has been hailed as one of the most successful of all recent government economic stimulus programs. According to the Center for Automotive Research, CAR, Cash for Clunkers created approximately 40,200 new jobs nationally, of which 5,800 were in Michigan. I ask unanimous consent to submit the testimony of Consumers Energy, a fine American corporation situated in the southeast corner of Michigan, from the Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources on this matter. And Mr. Chairman, I look forward to working with the subcommittee on this important legislation, and I commend you again for having this hearing.
We thank the gentleman, and we will, by unanimous consent, include that material in the record. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank you for convening this hearing today on the proposed legislation to incentivize home energy retrofits and reduce unemployment in the construction sector. With the unemployment rate at nearly 10% in the United States, I believe that it is crucial that Congress focuses on creating a climate that promotes job creation. By the same token, I also believe that sound energy efficiency measures will certainly help decrease the amount of greenhouse gas emissions in our atmosphere. They will also encourage our country to strengthen our energy security and end our dependence on foreign energy resources. The legislation that is being proposed to institute a rebate-type program has many promising aspects to it. Under the Silver Star program, rebates will be awarded to participating contractors and vendors who perform qualifying energy savings measures. Under the Gold Star program, rebates will be awarded to participating contractors and vendors for retrofits that achieve whole home energy savings. However, I am concerned that Section 13A provides that, quote, there are authorized to be appropriated to carry out this act such sums as may be necessary, end quote. We are operating in a fiscally constrained environment. It is our job on this committee to authorize a dollar amount. While the Senate version calls for a $6 billion program, I am greatly concerned about deficit spending, or whatever pay-for may be used to offset this spending. Additionally, I'm concerned that the implementation of this program will be inefficient. Mr. Chairman, I do agree that creating an environment that stimulates jobs is the key. However, it is of the utmost importance that we do this prudently. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses today, and I thank you and yield back.
Thank the gentleman. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Vermont, Mr. Welsh. Oh, I'm sorry. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Doyle. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And for the record, the University of Pittsburgh is in the NCAA tournament.
Did they get a resolution today, too?
Yeah. I want to thank you for convening this hearing today to explore the HomeStar program that President Obama proposed in his State of the Union address. Over the past several years, I've been very interested in the green building movement and the technologies and innovations this movement has brought forward. As some of you know, the City of Pittsburgh is at the forefront of the green building movement. Innovations by our researchers, work by our construction companies, and a real eye to the future has created innovations that I believe can benefit each and every congressional district in our nation. The time for building without concern for energy cost is behind us. The very same can be said about energy efficiency. As my constituents are faced with rising energy costs in a recession, they're struggling to find ways to cut their energy usage. But the truth remains that many of the investments needed to make your home more energy efficient are financially impossible for families in today's economy. The HomeStar program will offer families hoping to cut their energy costs the chance to make energy-efficient upgrades to their homes with the promise of an immediate rebate from the contractor they hired to do this work. If the Weatherization Assistance Program in Pennsylvania is any indication, HomeStar will be a very popular program in my state. Another opportunity with the HomeStar program is the job creation potential. The program will increase employment in the construction sector, which we all know has been particularly hard hit in the last year, the manufacturing sector, which is imperative to the economy in Pittsburgh and really all across America, is set to benefit because the materials used in HomeStar projects will be almost entirely domestically sourced. I can't think of a greater win-win right now, Mr. Chairman, unless, of course, the Tea Party decides to endorse a single-payer system today. I look forward to the testimony today as we hammer out the details of how this program will be run. I do have a few questions regarding the administration of the program and making sure that the work done is quality and provides measurable savings to homeowners. Mr. Chairman, thank you for getting the ball rolling on this excellent program, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Great. The gentleman's time has expired. The Chair recognizes the Chairman of the full committee, Mr. Waxman.
Thank you, Chairman Markey. Thank you for holding this hearing. Today, our nation continues its courageous struggle to overcome the worst recession in 70 years. No sector of the economy has been harder hit than the home construction services sector. Today, more than 1 in 4 construction workers, a worker is unemployed, more than twice the national average. We need these workers and their skills more than ever. We must seize the opportunity to modernize our homes and buildings and ensure their efficient use of energy. 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions are attributable to American buildings. Improving the efficiency of those buildings would allow us to reduce our carbon pollution and save money at the same time. The HomeStar proposal is compelling because it addresses both of these problems simultaneously. First, the proposal will put a lot of people back to work, making our homes more efficient. At the same time, it can stimulate the manufacturing sector by increasing demand for energy-efficient products. By some estimates, HomeStar will create more than 130,000 direct and indirect near-term jobs. Second, HomeStar will cut our carbon pollution in the near term and be an important down payment for even more successful reductions in the future. I want to commend Chairman Markey and Representative Welch for their leadership on this proposal. They've had the vision to see the tremendous economic and environmental benefits of nurturing energy efficiency retrofits into a major national undertaking. President Obama has lent his unequivocal support to this initiative. We now have the opportunity in our committee to make HomeStar a priority and deliver jobs and energy efficiency to America's housing and commercial office stock throughout the country. I'd also like to welcome today's witnesses, Assistant Secretary Zoy, Governor Engler, Mr. Lassiter, Mr. Thaman, and Mr. Pratt. I appreciate your joining us today and look forward to hearing your testimony.
Great. The Chairman's time has expired. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Vermont, Mr. Welch.
Thank you, Chairman Markey. I very much appreciate you convening this hearing. Thank you, Ranking Member Upton. When we introduced REAP, the National Residential Commercial Retrofit Program that was passed by this committee and the House, it was a coalition that identified, like we have today, the incredible potential of the low-hanging fruit of energy efficiency. And today we have witnesses who show that this is bipartisan. It represents something powerful across the country. And I appreciate Secretary Zoy, Mr. Lassiter, Governor Engler, Mr. Thaman, and Mr. Pratt for being here. You're on the front lines. You know how it works. You know it's real. And you are here to testify and demonstrate that this is a public and private partnership, market-based approach to getting something done. HomeStar is going to put contractors to work. It's going to create manufacturing jobs because the source is, as Mr. Doyle said, American. And it's going to help small-town hardware stores as well as the big-box retailers. It creates 168,000 jobs. This just small modified program. 3 million American families can cut their energy bills by $10 billion over 10 years, and it reduces, obviously, our dependence on foreign oil. In Vermont, we are an efficiency state. We have an efficiency utility. We've created thousands of jobs. We've reduced consumption by 7%, and we save folks money. That's a good deal for America. What we have seen is that this can work. And with HomeStar, we can replicate what is being done across this country, and it's going to do those things that need to be done about jobs, about energy savings, and about reducing our dependence on foreign oil. What is also so much a tremendous opportunity is that we can do this together. This Congress is locked in partisan battles, and there are real differences between us on many issues. But this is an opportunity for us to find common ground about jobs, about energy independence, and about putting our folks to work. And I'm so grateful for you that you're here to testify about this and have us focus on doing something real, something useful, something necessary, and do it together. I yield back.
Great. Gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Griffith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I look forward to working with my colleagues on this project. I know that it certainly sounds good theoretically, and we hope that it works out practically. But we know that we have had in the past some theoretical successes, but some implementation problems with just such a project as this as it gets down into the communities. So I'm hoping that we solve those or anticipate those problems as we get to them, before we get to them, so to speak. And I must say that energy efficiency is an important step in making our country less dependent on foreign oil, but because this committee is concerned with energy in its totality, I think we not only need this sort of a program, but we also need to make sure that we're not sending a mixed message to our energy producers. And our Outer Continental Shelf 5-year plan should be a big part of this as well. And I appreciate the opportunity to participate with you and make sure that when it gets down to the contractor and the window manufacturers, that we don't get into a bureaucratic nightmare of paperwork and 3 or 4 months of form filling out and then no response. So I know those are on your mind. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to participate.
Great, thank you. The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Barrow, is recognized.
I thank the chair. I'm pleased that President Obama chose my hometown of Savannah earlier this month to come and roll out the administration's support for this program, and I think it's got tremendous promise. I want to quickly register just a couple of areas of concern to me based on what we've learned from prior efforts in the past. Mention has already been made of the fact that the weatherization program in the Recovery Act hasn't gone as far as we would like. It's not that the program hasn't been administered, the money has been wasted, the money hadn't been spent yet, and comments have been made that what we don't need is something that's impossible to administer or something that's impossibly bureaucratic. I happen to believe that this is a direct response to our experience with the Recovery Act's effort to plus up existing programs that are relatively high maintenance. I remember a great line in the movie When Harry Met Sally when they're talking about relationships that are high maintenance and low maintenance. And the gal asked the guy, well, what am I? He said, well, you're the worst kind. You're high maintenance, but you think you're low maintenance. And I kind of feel like that's what the Recovery Act was. It took a high-maintenance program, but we treated it as if it was low-maintenance, put all kinds of resources in it. It just hadn't gotten through. This is a low-maintenance approach, and the more user-friendly we can make this, I think the more effective it will be. And that, I think, is an important first step. But I want to know what we can do to actually make this, not just think it's low-maintenance, but actually be low-maintenance. I want to explore with you all and get your ideas about how we can make this as efficient as possible. Also, God bless the do-it-yourselfers out there. To the extent that we're going to authorize some relief and some help with folks who can do it themselves, that's important. We may not be helping the contracting community quite as much, but the manufacturing base is going to get a boost out of this, and the homeowner who's going to have sweat equity in this is going to have the energy savings and efficiency to show for it. So I want to explore those two areas. I want to thank Mr. Welch especially for his leadership in this area. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
Great. Gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Burgess.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, energy efficiency is the common ground in a lot of our fights that we have on this committee. And really, efficiency measures are some of the quickest and most concrete ways we have of solving the energy problems and move this country to a cleaner and more sustainable energy future. And the market proves this. Upgrade your home's windows and insulation, and as a consumer, you watch your bills drop. Rather than having this committee spend its time with climate bills that run the risk of further damaging our already fragile economy, I have consistently maintained that both sides of the aisle can come together on common sense issues like efficiency, helping to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels and make our country a greener place to live. And not only have I advocated here in the halls of Congress, I've also promoted it within the walls of my own home. My wife and I built a house in North Texas 4 years ago. We wanted to make the investment and use energy-efficient techniques at the time of building because we knew it would pay off down the road. And as you can imagine, one of the biggest challenges in Texas is a long, hot summer. We found there were numerous ways to keep up the heat, including focusing on low-E glass in the windows, higher efficiency air conditioners, an efficient attic system, and foam insulation in the walls. We also installed light-colored shingles on the roof to reflect sunlight, and installed a tankless water heater, which is much more efficient than the tank model. Each measure helped us lower our consumption and our energy bills to the point that they were 40% lower than our previous year's bills when the house was finished. Energy efficiency shouldn't be something that we necessarily need to incentivize at the federal level. Show people how their bills will drop, and they'll be running to buy a new water heater or to reshingle their roof. Energy efficiency is something that we can promote without having to spend a single federal dollar, certainly without having to spend dollars that we don't have. The cost of this bill should concern everyone in this room. In the draft before us today, this committee cedes its power as an authorizing committee to the Appropriations Committee, allowing appropriators rather than the authorizers to determine how much money is in the program. Regardless of ideology, members of this committee on both sides of the dais should be concerned over the precedent set by delegating that authority to another committee. Allowing phrases such as such sums as may be necessary to be used for a program of this magnitude is simply giving a blank check to a federal agency, something this Congress can no longer afford to do. And the devil's in the details with legislation such as this. I'm grateful that drafters desire to get this program moving quickly once the bill has cleared both sides of the House, or both sides of the Capitol, but I'm concerned that the finite list of approved upgrades, this committee is simply picking winners and losers for what technology will be eligible for efficiency rebates, and I think more attention needs to be placed on ensuring that this list is as comprehensive as possible for the wide range of efficiency upgrades that are available to homeowners today. I thank the chairman for his indulgence, and I'll yield back the balance of my time.
Great. Gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from California, Ms. Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This committee is not new to the issue of energy efficiency in homes, nor is my own district. Mr. Upton and I collaborated pretty successfully, I think, on lighting efficiency standards, which are now part of federal law, and we are continuing to collaborate successfully, I think, on outdoor lighting standards, which we will introduce as a standalone bill soon, and which we hope will be part of the energy package that we pass sometime later this Congress, if we pass an energy package. In my own district, I just want to call attention to a family in Hermosa Beach, the Fortunatos, who are creating what they call a net zero house. That means the house will produce as much energy as it uses. It's a revolution. It's not off the grid. It is the grid. And Southern California Edison will move shortly to install smart grids, which are also getting stimulus bill funding, in Hermosa Beach so that other families can do the same thing. In Manhattan Beach, there's a company called Windstream, which produces small rooftop wind turbines. Windstream and a lighting company called Ledtronics are partnering with the Fortunatos to make their house energy neutral. There's also a communications company in El Segundo which has put solar panels over its parking lots, and they now produce 20% of the energy that company, a large communications company, uses. I've had solar panels on my rooftop in Venice, California for 9 years, and they generate the energy I need for hot water. So there are lots of good local projects. There's a huge history here of bipartisanship, and these proposals that we will hear about today will build on the strong record we have in the committee, and I'm very pleased to be here and to welcome our witnesses. I yield back.
Great. Gentlelady's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from California, Ms. Capps.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I will waive my opening statement in favor of the questions and look forward to the testimony of our witnesses. Thank you.
Great. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. McNerney.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing this morning. I want to congratulate you and Mr. Welch for your leadership on this issue. I spent most of my career developing new energy technology, and I can tell you it's hard work, it's dirty, and the real low-hanging fruit is energy efficiency. I know Chairman Markey has beat that drum over and over, and he's absolutely right. For every dollar you invest in energy efficiency, you get dollars back. And so I also can see there's a business right next to my office in California that is an energy efficiency. They go out and they look at homes. They see what needs to be done. They're making a good money doing that. And if we can incentivize that, we are going to create thousands and thousands of jobs while helping our dependence on foreign oil. There's almost no downside that I can imagine for this bill. So I look forward to what your testimony is and maybe make some improvements on the bill as we move forward. But thank you for coming, and I will yield back the balance of my time.
We thank the gentleman, and all time for opening statements has been completed. So we'll turn to our first witness. Our first witness is Ms. Kathy Zoy. She is the Assistant Secretary for the U.S. Department of Energy, Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. Prior to joining the Obama administration, Ms. Zoy served as founding CEO of the Alliance for Climate Protection, as Chief of Staff on Environmental Policy in the Clinton administration, and as a former manager at the Environmental Protection Agency, where she pioneered the Energy Star program. Ms. Zoy, whenever you're ready, please begin.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chairman Markey, Ranking Member Upton.
If you could turn on your microphone, please, and just move it in a little bit closer.
Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today, and it's a pleasure to appear with such
Could
a
you just move that microphone down? That's just a little. Just push it down just a little. Okay, good.
How's that? Better? Okay. Thanks for the opportunity to appear before you, and it's a pleasure to appear with such a panel of knowledgeable industry witnesses. I will make my remarks brief, and I have submitted a longer statement for the record. We have a tremendous opportunity right now to create jobs and save money for homeowners all across the country. There are approximately 130 million homes in the United States, very few of which are as efficient as they could be. Almost all of these homes could benefit from additional insulation, caulking, upgraded heating and air conditioning systems, and other improvements. Just as critically, there's a workforce standing by ready to make those improvements. The overall construction sector currently faces a 27% unemployment rate. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, nearly 2 million construction jobs have been lost since December 2007. 2 million hardworking Americans ready and anxious to find ways to apply their skills to new jobs. With a home retrofit program, we can transform these two challenges into an enormous opportunity, tapping workers' skills and availability to help American families save money and energy. Americans are spending over $200 billion per year in energy, money that could pay for housing, tuition, or other basic necessities. As the President has said, if you saw $20 bills flying out your window, you would try to grab them. So let's try to make it easier for American families to prevent their hard-earned cash from flying out of leaky, inefficient homes while we create good-paying jobs for folks across the country. We can do just that through a home retrofit program like the one the President called for in his State of the Union. 2 weeks ago, the President outlined more details of what he has in mind for a HomeStar program, including rebates delivered directly to consumers, a $1,000 to $1,500 level of Silver Star rebates, $3,000 Gold Star rebates for whole home retrofits, oversight to ensure quality installations, and support for financing at the local level. Through this program, we can create tens of thousands of jobs while achieving substantial reductions in energy use, up to the equivalent of the entire output of several 500-megawatt coal-fired power plants each year. Consumers taking advantage of the program are likely to save between $200 and $500 per year in their energy costs, while improving the comfort and the value of their homes. I want to thank the members of this subcommittee and other members who have been working tirelessly on efforts to create legislative language that follows the President's vision. As the legislative process moves forward, we will continue to work with Congress on the bill until it is enacted. Today, I'm glad the subcommittee has convened a hearing, and I'm happy to answer questions regarding how the HomeStar proposal, or how the department would actually implement it once it's in law. My goal as Assistant Secretary for Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy is to harness the ingenuity and ability of the American workforce to help families save energy and money. Retrofitting millions of American homes can truly transform energy consumption throughout the nation while putting people to work. Last year, Secretary Chu said, "In the next several decades, I believe that energy efficiency is our most powerful tool for reducing our carbon emissions and reducing our energy bills." Well, home energy retrofits could be crucial to realizing both of those goals while supporting American job creation. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify on this topic, and I'll gladly answer questions.
Thank you. And our next witness is Mr. Larry Lassiter. He is the president of Well Home, a subsidiary of a leading home improvement company. And as the president of Well Home, we welcome you here, sir. And he is going to testify on behalf of HomeStar Coalition as the president of Well Home. So we welcome you, sir.
Well, thank you, Chairman Markey, Ranking Member Upton, and the distinguished members of the subcommittee for the privilege to testify today and your dedication to energy efficiency. I would also like to thank Congressman Welch for his leadership on this issue. I'm Larry Lassiter, president of Masco Home Services, also known as Well Home. Our company is a home performance contractor, and we're an operating company of Masco Corporation, a Michigan-based Fortune 500 company and one of America's largest manufacturers of products for the home. Masco is better known by our leading brands, such as Behr Paint, Delta Faucets, Craft-Made Cabinets, and many others, and we are the nation's largest installer of insulation. But I'm here today to speak on behalf of the HomeStar Coalition, a broad group of industry, labor, energy, and environmental supporters, including more than 600 small businesses representing all 50 states. We stand together in support of the HomeStar program, which would deliver a rare triple win for the American people in the form of jobs, savings for consumers, and a positive impact on the environment. Let me begin with jobs. Make no mistake about it, the construction industry is in the midst of a one-industry depression. The unemployment rate in construction is 27%, nearly 3 times the overall jobless rate. And this rate is higher than our nation's unemployment rate at the height of the Great Depression. At Masco Corporation, we have felt the pain of this industry downturn, and we felt it firsthand, having lost 27,000 jobs, or over 40% of our workforce. However, construction workers have the know-how and the experience for home energy retrofits, and they're ready to get to work in jobs that cannot be outsourced overseas. These are workers like Michael Youngblood. Michael fell in love with construction when he started working for a family friend when he was only 15 years old. He built over 150 custom homes during a successful 18-year career. But Michael found himself unemployed with a young family last year when the builder he was working for downsized from 25 project managers down to 3. Michael joined our Well Home team in Michigan last summer, earned his Building Performance Institute certification, and now helps homeowners achieve energy efficiency retrofit. HomeStar will create more jobs for construction workers like Michael, most of whom work for small businesses, and it will drive increased demand for manufactured products and building materials that are almost universally made in the USA, supporting further job growth and economic impact and putting idled plants back online. For the American homeowner, the benefit comes in the form of annual energy savings of up to 45%. On average, these savings are equivalent to a $500 stimulus check that a participating homeowner would receive every year for years to come. And of course, energy efficiency improvements will support energy independence and the environment. Home energy represents 22% of our carbon output, twice that of passenger cars, and more than 2/3 of America's over 100 million homes were built before modern building codes. There's clearly a need, and HomeStar will fill that need by lowering the cost of these home improvements. Things like fixing drafty windows and leaking ducts, installing insulation and high-efficiency heating and air-conditioning systems, or undertaking whole-home energy retrofits. Spurring consumer demand for these improvements will drive thousands of jobs for small contractors nationwide. And in addition, the HomeStar Coalition remains committed to the inclusion of a targeted incentive for customer-installed measures under the Silver Star program. And we also know that medium middle-class Americans are squeezed by the economy and the credit crisis, and that's why the HomeStar program legislation allocates $200 million for state programs to make energy efficiency loans more available and more affordable. In addition, HomeStar establishes industry performance standards, ensures that a portion of all jobs are inspected by credentialed professionals after the project is completed, and offers added incentives to contractors that invest in a properly trained and certified workforce. This quality assurance system, based on rigorous technical standards, delivers on the promise of energy savings for American families. I would like to conclude by affirming that HomeStar is a win-win-win for jobs, for the American consumer, and for the environment. It will put an estimated 168,000 skilled Americans back to work in the hardest hit part of our economy, the struggling construction and its related manufacturing sector. It will help more than 3 million American families retrofit their homes for energy efficiency, saving them as much as $9.4 billion in energy cost over 10 years, a return greater than the cost of the program itself, and it will positively impact the environment and America's energy independence. On behalf of the current and future workers represented by the 600 businesses that make up the HomeStar Coalition and the millions of households which will benefit in every community in America, I encourage you to move this bill forward without delay. Thank you for the opportunity to testify and for your important leadership on behalf of the American people.
Thank you, Mr. Lassiter, very much. Our next witness is Governor John Engler. He is the President and CEO of the National Association of Manufacturers. He is the former governor of Michigan and previously served for 20 years in the state legislature. The National Association of Manufacturers is the largest industry trade group in America, representing small and large manufacturers in every industrial sector in all 50 states. We welcome you, Governor Engler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much for the opportunity to be with you today. Ranking Member and good friend Fred Upton, distinguished subcommittee members, thank you for holding this hearing on the HomeStar proposal and offering me the opportunity to testify before you today. I thought maybe it could just be deemed that I'd testify, but then I thought I'd better show up here in person, and so here I am. The NAM members are very excited, very committed to working with the administration.
If you make the motion, we'll pass the bill right now.
The thought of being here, though, just to tell you that we want to work with you and the administration and Congress to make the HomeStar proposal as effective as possible, as soon as possible. And I'm pleased to offer our support for this important program. Our manufacturers firmly believe that an effective program to encourage energy-efficient home retrofits will stimulate job creation by increasing the demand for energy-efficient products and services, and will lead us down a path to more energy-efficient economy. Bottom line, straightforward: more jobs, fewer emissions, less energy. The U.S. manufacturing sector was hit hard during the recession. Manufacturing employment's fallen by nearly 2.2 million since December of 2007 to a level just over 11.5 million. The deep decline in the housing market, which includes the home improvement sector, has had a significant impact on manufacturing. Nearly a quarter of the manufacturing jobs have been lost in industries closely connected to housing, such as furniture, wood, and textile products, building materials. This sector continues to struggle. You've heard that today already. You'll continue to hear that. Consequently, a sustainable upturn in the housing sector will be a key ingredient for getting manufacturing back on track, expanding production, and creating high-paying jobs. In fact, the NAM estimates if, and that may be a big if, a healthy rebound in housing takes place over the next few years, it likely will create an additional 128,000 manufacturing jobs in industries connected to this sector. The HomeStar program that we're here today to talk about would spur much-needed consumer demand for energy-efficient products and building materials by providing significant and immediate rebates for home energy efficiency retrofits. In addition to promoting residential energy efficiency, HomeStar will quickly create jobs in the manufacturing, distribution, and sale of energy-efficient products. One key reason, been mentioned, and some of the members have touched on this, the HomeStar program, it will work, I think, is that consumers can act pretty much as soon as Congress acts. It's not necessary, this program, to wait for a federal agency to act first. And there's, I think, also further evidence that a temporary targeted incentive program like HomeStar could work. The Clean Energy Manufacturing Tax Credit Program that was in the stimulus bill of last year, has drawn tremendous interest from the private sector. Section 48C provided a 30% tax credit for investments in facilities that manufacture clean energy technologies, and that includes the wind, solar, batteries, advanced transportation, advanced energy transmission. The initial tax credit under 48C was capped at to $2.3 billion. It has the potential to generate some 58,000 jobs. It's already oversubscribed, and so we also are happy to support the administration's initiative that Vice President Biden's announcing today that's going to provide an additional $5 billion to expand that current program. We recognize the need to promote energy efficiency across the U.S. economy. Manufacturers account for a third of our nation's energy use. Cost-effective energy efficiency and conservation measures are the key to reducing overall energy cost inputs, and it's a way to stretch available energy supplies at the same time reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The manufacturing sector itself has taken the lead in reducing energy usage and increasing energy efficiency, making it a priority. Improvements in energy efficiency in the manufacturing sector have helped the country actually be 48% more efficient in energy use per unit of GDP, and they've reduced the energy intensity of the U.S. economy by nearly 2%. Similar efforts by homeowners would make a substantial contribution to U.S. energy security because they also are responsible for about one-third of energy consumption, as the Secretary mentions in her testimony. Manufacturers are committed to producing the necessary energy-efficient consumer products such as insulation, windows, doors, skylights, heating and cooling systems. And likewise, we were pleased to see in this morning's draft that was made available the inclusion of other products that are also designed to promote residential energy efficiency. With more than half the 86 million single-family homes throughout the United States built before modern codes even existed, the vast majority of the homes in the United States are not well insulated, have outdated heating and cooling systems, inefficient windows and doors. They are great candidates for energy efficiency upgrades. Just think this, if consumers install more energy efficient products, they could save up to 30% on their energy bills. And the McKinsey study, which many of us are quite familiar with, showed the United States could save more than $600 billion in energy costs by 2020 if we spend more on making our homes and our buildings more energy efficient. Mr. Chairman, as you and your subcommittee fully understand, the country faces significant challenges in terms of job creation and energy use. Our manufacturers believe the HomeStar program provides a unique opportunity for the public and private sectors to work together to address two major policy objectives, creating jobs and lowering unemployment while making American homes more energy efficient. We look forward to working with you expeditiously to make HomeStar a reality.
Thank you, Governor, very much. Our honor to have you here with us. Thank you. Our next witness, Mr. Michael Thaman. He is the President and CEO and Chairman of the Board of Owens Corning. Owens Corning is a global producer of residential and commercial building materials and fiberglass insulation. We welcome you, sir.
Chairman Markey, Ranking Member Upton, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. I also thank Chairman Markey and the committee for your leadership in recognizing the importance of energy efficiency as it relates to national energy policy. Additionally, I'd like to personally thank and recognize Congressman Welch for your hard work on the progress we've made. My name is Mike Thaman. I'm Chairman and CEO of Owens Corning, a global company based in Toledo, Ohio. I'm proud of Owens Corning and our energy efficiency focus. Our company was founded in 1938 when we first commercialized glass fibers that led to the creation of fiberglass insulation. We produce more energy-saving insulation than anyone else in North America. We operate 55 manufacturing facilities in the U.S., including insulation plants in Ohio, California, Texas, Georgia, New York, Kansas, Utah, Oregon, Arizona, and Illinois. In the midst of the downturn in the U.S. economy and the housing industry, we've experienced significant job loss at Owens Corning. The businesses in our building materials group in the U.S. today employ 25% fewer people than at their peak of the U.S. housing cycle in 2006. In 2009, our insulation plants operated at only 50% of capacity, compared with full utilization in 2006. Contractors who buy and install our insulation are also struggling. Data from the Insulation Contractor Association of America indicates that the unemployment rate in the installer community is about 30%, 3 times higher than the current national unemployment rate. I join you today in support of HomeStar and your effort to create jobs in America. HomeStar, as currently proposed, will create demand for the residential insulation products that my company manufactures and sells. HomeStar will create jobs at Owens Corning. As important, it will create work for insulation contractors across the country, as well as the suppliers and distributors that make up the sales and supply chain supporting America's insulation industry. As you know, HomeStar is designed to provide financial incentives for energy efficiency investments in residential buildings. It has two primary components, Gold Star, which provides incentives for comprehensive energy audits, and Silver Star, which provides immediate near-term incentives to drive specific energy-saving investments like insulation, windows, doors, HVAC systems, and water heaters. We strongly support both components of the program. We do believe that Silver Star is more likely to have the most immediate impact on jobs. We have carefully studied HomeStar. It will create jobs at Owens Corning and at many other businesses that employ workers across the housing sector. HomeStar will also reduce energy use and homeowners' utility bills. That's important. According to the EPA, the average U.S. household spends more than $2,200 a year on energy bills, with nearly half going to pay heating and cooling costs. Buildings in the country are the largest energy consumers. Builders consume 40% of our nation's energy and over 70% of America's electricity. Our homes are with us for generations. Many of our nation's homes were built before there were appropriate energy codes or any energy codes at all. The fundamental rationale for investing in energy efficiency home retrofits is compelling, and the outcomes are measurable and meaningful. Today, more than 80 million American homes are under-insulated. As a leading producer of insulation products, our best estimates tell us that each year, 99% of U.S. homeowners will not re-insulate their homes without financial incentives. At the same time, our experience has shown us that financial incentives will drive people to invest in energy efficiency products when those incentives are meaningful and when the process to access them is simple and direct. Insulation reduces energy costs to a homeowner. A study published in 2007 by the global consultancy McKinsey, which Governor Engler referenced, reports that insulation is the most cost-effective way to reduce energy consumption and carbon emissions in the U.S. In the midst of the current economic downturn, and with the national unemployment rate surpassing 9%, putting Americans back to work to make energy-saving investments is a good idea. HomeStar gives all Americans an opportunity to act and an opportunity to make a difference in creating jobs and saving energy. HomeStar's direct approach will drive demand and create sustainable U.S. jobs. By including rebates for insulation purchased on an installed basis or at retail, all American homeowners can participate in this program. This is good policy because there are certain consumers who prefer to do the jobs themselves. They should not be left out of the program. When we drive demand for insulation, we create U.S. jobs. The insulation industry is uniquely U.S. job-centric. Virtually all of the insulation-related jobs, raw materials, manufacturing, delivery, sale, and installation, occur within several hundred miles of the U.S. home where the insulation will be installed. HomeStar can be a job creation bridge for thousands of unemployed insulation manufacturers and contractors who are awaiting the return of the U.S. housing market. Today, leading economists forecast that the housing market will not see pronounced recovery until 2011 or 2012. Without HomeStar, the outlook for unemployment in our industry is not expected to improve anytime soon. HomeStar is a great opportunity to create jobs, save energy, become more energy secure, and reduce energy bills. Putting people back to work is sound economic policy. Making existing homes more energy efficient is sound energy policy. I urge you to take the necessary steps to ensure that HomeStar becomes law. I look forward to answering any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, sir. Our next witness is Mr. Christopher Pratt. He is the Vice President of Construction Development Services in Troy, Michigan. He is here on behalf of the National Association of Home Builders. Mr. Pratt has authored portions of training curriculum for the National Home Builders Institute on weatherization in residential housing. So we welcome you, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Markey, Ranking Members Upton, and members of the subcommittee. My name is Christopher Pratt. I'm a construction design and energy specialist from Troy, Michigan, with over 25 years of experience, as well as a weatherization instructor for a number of state programs. I'm pleased to testify on behalf of the National Association of Home Builders about the HomeStar proposal.
How old were you when you began getting your experience 25 years ago?
I tell people I grew up in SOB, a son of a builder. So I grew up doing hard work.
So like when you were 5? You're
15.
15, okay, good.
I'm old. I don't look it. NAHB supports incentives for retrofitting older homes and believes this is the best way to achieve meaningful energy savings in the residential sector. We see the potential in a program like HomeStar to deliver energy savings and create jobs if it's crafted in a manner that will promote long-term workforce development in craft trades for contractors doing weatherization work. NAHB has already successfully demonstrated its ability to manage federally funded retrofit programs like Project Re-Energize in Minnesota. Late last year, the Builders Association there administered this rebate program with stimulus funds, and in a few short months, over 1,400 homes were retrofitted, 800 contractors were employed, and nearly $3 million were returned to customers in rebates for energy efficiency upgrades. NAHB hopes to ensure that the HomeStar program is equally accessible by all qualified, highly trained contractors that have undertaken legitimate workforce training and possess appropriate job skills in weatherization. We are concerned with the limitations on the certified workforce definition in the current draft legislation. Specifically, NAHB requests the inclusion of the Home Builders Institute, or HBI, as a qualified workforce development program. HBI is the largest Jobs Corps partners with the U.S. Department of Labor and has developed a robust weatherization curriculum that creates a career path for professionals doing retrofit work that will provide them with long-term employability. While HBI includes a certificate component, the development of the worker base and the job skills training and retrofit work is the centerpiece of the program and meets the goal of creating jobs in the emerging retrofit industry that will outlast the short-term incentives of the program. HBI is a legitimate workforce training program that deserves equal considerations with others listed in the draft. The weatherization curriculum, although newly introduced, was developed via a thorough task analysis and skills assessment process and provides 4 levels of skilled training: apprentice, weatherization worker, weatherization specialist, and energy analyst. The curriculum includes coursework covering everything from basic theory to calculating heat loss, in addition to hands-on practicum that teaches workers how to install 80 different weatherization products and perform 45 different installation activities. It is structured to accommodate all standards in use and can be administered and offered through a network of community colleges around the country, among others. For example, I'm currently training workers in this program in Houston, Texas, as part of a workforce investment grant. The program is currently being delivered throughout a number of partnerships with Goodwill Industries, the Carpenters Union, Ferris State University, among others. Above all, the program is about equipping workers with the appropriate job skills to serve them for their entire career and not just selling a certification credential. In that regard, HBI is considered a legitimate workforce development program along with the others currently listed in the draft. Another important item that may affect the successful implementation of HomeStar is the effective date of an EPA rule covering renovation and retrofit work in pre-1978 homes beginning on April 22nd of this year. Unfortunately, EPA does not have enough certified renovators that can legitimately work to retrofit older housing that the HomeStar program hopes to target. Contractors cannot meet the EPA's certification requirements for the lead renovation, repair, and paint rule by April 22nd will be breaking federal law if they work on pre-1978 homes. NAHB supports lead-safe work practices as well as retrofit incentives, but unless compliance issues with the lead rule are addressed, I believe this could deter work in older, less efficient homes. NAHB supports retrofitting older homes, and we are truly the experts in this field. We support the benefits in both job creation and energy savings that the program like HomeStar could deliver, but we are wary of the potential limitations such as the exclusion of HBI and the effective date of the EPA rule. We believe both of these issues, if not addressed, could ultimately limit the impact of HomeStar. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and present our thoughts on this proposal, and we look forward to working with you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. That completes time for opening statements for our witnesses. We'll now turn to questions from the subcommittee members. Ms. Zoy, Governor Engler mentioned this morning a program announced by Vice President Biden. Could you talk about that program and how it dovetails with the program that we're talking about here today?
I think what Governor Engler was referring. How's that? Better?
Yes, fine.
I think what Governor Engler was referring to was an extension of the 48C Advanced Manufacturing Tax Credit. Is that right? So that's a program that was part of the Recovery Act that gives tax breaks for establishing new manufacturing facilities in the United States that are in the clean energy sector. The program was oversubscribed. $2.3 billion has been allocated to companies that are getting things going over the next couple of years. They will create lots and lots of jobs in wind and solar and energy efficiency technologies and combined heat and power. But because it was so wildly oversubscribed, the Vice President is proposing that we actually extend that program and top up the money to the tune of $5 billion.
Okay, so we would need to authorize that as well?
Yes.
And you support that, Governor Engler?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Do you support putting the $2 billion back in for wind and solar that we took out for the Cash for Clunkers program as well, Governor?
I haven't looked at that, but we'd be certainly open to talking about that. I mean, I guess we look at this sector as being so hard hit that any number of these strategies we think can be fairly quickly effective at putting people back to work. But certainly, we're here on HomeStar today because we just think that does put people to work.
You were just saying good things about the other programs, so I was hoping we could just have you get on a whole list of programs.
You might as well press on there. I understand.
Okay, no, I got you. And the administration supports putting the $2 billion back in for the wind and solar.
My understanding is that that provision might have been included in the first jobs bill that was just passed, but we should look back and check. But yes, of course.
$2 billion. Okay, great. Thank you.
Of course.
I appreciate it. So, how many jobs will this program create, Ms. Zoy?
Somewhere in the tens of thousands. I mean, I think the HomeStar Coalition has done a direct and indirect jobs estimate of 160,000. The direct jobs would be 60 to 70,000. Lots and lots of important jobs.
Great. Governor Engler, what is your hope for new jobs created by a program like this?
We think that this has the potential. I'm just checking my testimony to make sure I got my number right. I think I said I was sort of very similar with the Secretary. I think I said 168,000, but I want to make sure I get that number right.
Mr. Thaman is nodding his
head. I mean, we just think that the design of this so that the homeowner actually, once it's passed, they can go forward. You're going to have the private sector really running the program. We would hope that the reimbursement would work better than it did with the Cash for Clunkers, but I think everybody learned lessons off that, and that would happen. But Mr. Pratt's mention of the lead issue is kind of an interesting one that probably needs to also be attended to, because you could. I happen to be in a home that was built before 1978, and so I'm not sure I can get Mr. Pratt to come and take care of that. So you could have a lot of people caught in that inadvertent situation. So part of the cleanup would be good, and I also would support his suggestion on HBI.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. Thaman, we've heard complaints that HomeStar picks winners and losers for home products. Could you talk a little bit about the Gold Star program, creating a higher reward program for any product that achieves at least 20% home energy efficiency?
Well, I think there's two ways to look at improving the energy efficiency of a home. You can either look at the products that we know and have been demonstrated to improve energy efficiency, or you can have performance raters come in and rate a home. I think there's a good balance between Silver Star and Gold Star to target in Silver Star specific products and initiatives that we know save energy, and then in Gold Star have a more holistic approach to actually rating the home and testing the home for energy efficiency improvements. We know, based on our history as an insulation manufacturer, that any time you install more insulation, you improve the energy efficiency of a home. So it's a pretty safe bet to directly fund that initiative.
Okay, and Mr. Pratt, could you talk about the Gold Star program and how that does reward any product that is more efficient?
As an energy rater myself, I personally believe that the performance-based tests tend to be more efficient or guarantee or help improve the chances that the improved measures were installed correctly. So I also do some training. Mr. Upton might be aware of the thaw program in Michigan, where they go around and help homeowners install products in their existing home. I find sometimes that when you're up in an attic space and it's 140 degrees, you spend less time working on the insulation than you do trying to get out of the attic space. So a lot of times there's good efforts put into tasks, but sometimes they don't get all installed the way you'd like them to be installed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pratt. Let me turn and recognize the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Upton.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I you know, as I've talked to some of my colleagues on our side and heard some of the opening statements, there is clearly some skepticism on this bill, and in large part, you know, as we looked at the DOEIG report issued last month, of the $4.7 billion that was awarded in grants under the stimulus plan, only $368 million have been used by the state so far, and only some 30,000 that have been used. And you know, this was supposed to be a shovel-ready program, ready to go. Clearly, there was some need. And as we look at the way that the Cash for Clunkers program was administered, I mean, I think most of us thought it would be pretty easy to do. You've got 25,000 auto dealers across the country. There were provisions on fraud and abuse that were in place. You had to show that the car had been insured, actually run, and you know, it had to meet the mileage requirements that anyone could figure out from the internet. And the dealers were supposed to be reimbursed, I want to say, within 7 days. And I'll bet every one of us here on both sides of the aisle heard from lots of our dealers saying it's been more than a month. We've got dozens of cars, sometimes some of the larger dealers, 50, 100 cars. Department of Transportation hired more than 1,000 people. I mean, that's, you know, they only had to make about 2 calls to a dealer per day to figure all this out with the documentation to get them done, and it didn't happen. And now you're talking about a program that maybe is as large as 8 times as more. This was a $3 billion program, Cash for Clunkers, over a limited span of time. They did 750,000 vehicles. You've got more builders. There's already a tax credit that's in place for homeowners to make whatever adjustments that they want, up to, I think it's $1,500 tax credit on work that has to be at least, that's what, a 30% tax credit on business that's done. And as we look at fraud and abuse, I mean, how is it at DOE that you're going to be able to determine whether people did both? They actually took a tax credit, and then they did a deal with their builder that is supposed to be passed through them. Why not just keep it as a tax credit and let the power of the IRS make sure that there's some compliance versus what you're going to have to do in terms of additional staff and certification and everything else? Do you see where the skepticism comes on our side?
Can I would love to.
Yes, go ahead.
Very good series of issues that you raise, and I welcome the opportunity to talk about, first of all, the structure that we have in mind for this, which is designed to leverage private sector expertise, sectoral expertise that's already taking place, that's designed for the main government functions to prevent waste, fraud, and abuse, and to publish eligibility standards for the contractors that are capable of doing the work. I'd also like to take a moment, if I may, to update the committee on the data about the weatherization program. So, in fact, why don't I take that one first?
Okay.
So the weatherization program, as you point out, is about a $5 billion program. The Recovery Act didn't double weatherization. It didn't triple it. It multiplied it times 25. So 900 community action agencies had to spend a few months hiring more people. It was the first time ever that Davis-Bacon wages were applied. The Labor Department had to determine what fair wages were. So the community action agencies spent the summer months hiring, training, figuring out the Davis-Bacon wages. The ramp-up well and truly started in the fall. We tripled the number of homes that were done between September and December. The ramp rate that we need to be at to meet the overall goals for the program by March 2012 is about 20 to 25,000 homes a month. We estimate in February, that was a short month, and it was a snowy month in most of the country, that we did probably 17,000 homes. So we're within striking distance to our max ramp rate that's required. This is actually a great tribute to the ability of these 900 community action agencies to ramp up quickly. So it took longer than expected to get going, but I would also, I applaud what Congressman Barrow pointed out. This was a program that is 30 years old. It has certain structures in place. The federal government has to give money to the states. The states then give money to the local community action agencies. It's a well-established network. We are designing the HomeStar program to not be encumbered by some of those same things that service the low-income community only. So what we have then done is pivoted and said, well, Cash for Clunkers may have had a few hiccups because it required 9 PDFs to be submitted for every single transaction, as you pointed out. So what we have in mind here is something that uses modern IT, that has a list of, we work very, very closely with rebate aggregators, who are the network managers for the sector. They put together, we put together a simple form that's filled out by all the certified contractors. Those eligibility criteria are all listed. And then with what the Department of Energy has to do is ensure once the rebates are aggregated and submitted, we do the reimbursement. The second part of it is establishing a quality assurance program, and we work in partnership with the states because, again, they're the ones who have home inspector networks. And what we do is capitalize on the fact that even some of those home inspectors don't have much to do these days. We put those guys back to work. They're part of our quality assurance scheme. Where the states are not quite ready to do the quality assurance, the federal government provides that default function. So we are absolutely taking very seriously the concerns that you've raised about other programs, taking them to heart, and we feel very strongly that we can establish this program to get going as quickly as possible to get people back to work.
I know my time has expired, so I'll yield back. Thank you.
Great. Gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Zoe, and you've just started to touch on this, and I want you to expand on it further. A few years ago, in my state of Pennsylvania, we had an internal audit of the Weatherization Assistance Program, and it resulted that there was a backlog of nearly 9,000 applicants to the program, many of them constituents of mine that qualified for the program are stuck in this backlog. And though the program was federally funded, it was administered by Pennsylvania's Department of Community and Economic Development. So while I'm very obviously excited about the HomeStar program, I want to see it get going. I'm a little concerned about the backlog. I just want to ask 4 quick questions and have you just comment on them, and I think some you've touched on already. Is EPA prepared to process the rebates to contractors in the 30-day time frame set out in the bill? And what portion of this will be the state's responsibility? Do you foresee that it will require additional staff at DOE or EPA and at the state level to process these rebates? Will small businesses be able to process the rebates in the same time frame as big box retailers like Home Depot or Lowe's? And then finally, I'm concerned about the quality assurance measurement and how will we make sure that the work that's being done is good work. Homeowners are going to be able to measure the success of their work by their energy savings, and this means we don't have much margin for error. Can you explain how the contractors will be certified and who's going to be responsible for the oversight of the installations?
Yes. Okay. So the 30-day processing, the answer is yes. We will absolutely do the 30-day processing. The small business eligibility, again, what we want, the rebate aggregator concept is so that a variety of experts in the field, sector specialists, can help the small guys with what they need and be able to contribute. So rebate aggregators might be the big box guys. They might be utilities. They might be existing home performance with Energy Star states that work very well with small businesses. And bundling up those
Just so, could you move that microphone in just a little bit closer, please? Just pull it in. Okay.
How's that? Okay.
Okay, good.
So there are a variety of ways that the small business folks will be able to play and will be able to get the attention that they need quickly through the proposed structure. In terms of quality assurance for the contractors, again, what we envision is that 20% of the jobs will get a field inspection, a ex post field inspection, that folks that sign up for the program will agree that they will make their home available for quality assurance, because consumer confidence that they're going to get quality work is very, very important. There are a variety of contractors that are out there that do QA right now that will be part of this program. Again, the idea that we've got is that we lean on the states to be overseeing the programs that are happening within their states. And again, what we're doing is we're leveraging work that's already happening right now and building on it and amplifying it to move quickly.
So what are we doing to make sure that states have sufficient manpower and personnel to make sure this, how do we ensure that, the state of Pennsylvania, who had a 9,000 case backlog administering this program, that this doesn't happen again? What onus is put on the state, or what responsibilities put on the state to make sure they have sufficient personnel to do this?
Well, there's financial, if the bill passes in its current formulation, there's financial resources that are allocated to the states to be able to stand up those good quality assurance programs.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
Just to your backlog
Yes.
question on weatherization, Unfortunately, there are 40 million people in America that are eligible for the low-income program. We've been working very closely with Governor Rendell and the state of Pennsylvania, and that program, I think in Pennsylvania, you're going to see a whole new sort of weatherization program going forward. So hopefully you'll have that backlog will be reduced substantially in the coming year.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, it's a good program, but we want to see it work as good as possible. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great. The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, has DOE analyzed whether there are legal requirements that may delay the rollout of the HomeStar program? In particular, will DOE have to take any actions to comply with the National Historic Preservation Act?
That's an excellent question, Congressman Pitts, because it has been some of those issues that have slowed down the implementation of the Recovery Act. The way the bill is currently configured, what our lawyers tell us is that we will be able to stand up the program within 60 days of passage. We have to do an administrative rule. That's what the lawyers tell us. But because of the structure of the law and because much of it is embedded in the statute, we will be able to do this very quickly.
Will DOE have to prepare an environmental analysis under NEPA? What kind of environmental review of the program would need to be done? How long would that take?
Again, what's envisioned here is similar to what happened with the categorical exclusion of the weatherization program, is that essentially is a very quick, simple, straightforward rulemaking because the environmental impacts of doing home retrofits are not material, so therefore an environmental assessment will unlikely be required. But again, it's a very quick process that won't inhibit speed at all.
Will there be any requirements that will need to be complied with under the program in terms of rates paid to contractors?
Again,
labor costs?
No, Davis-Bacon would not apply to this, so no.
In the event that in carrying out the program workers are injured or homes were damaged, is there any risk of additional taxpayer liabilities?
Again, the way we've tried to structure the program is to build on existing contractor relationship certifications, licensing, and bonding. So to the extent that only licensed bonded workers are part of this program, they would be covered by whatever insurance they currently carry.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Lassiter, I have some questions about small businesses involved in retrofitting industry and how they would benefit from the program. In your written testimony, you referenced 7,000 companies that make or install windows, 82% of which are small businesses. Of these, how many would you estimate are eligible to participate in the HomeStar program?
Under the Silver Star program, it is structured for anybody, as the Secretary said, who is licensed and insured according to that state, can immediately participate in the Silver Star program. So we would expect all of those contractors, those small businesses who wish to participate, can participate immediately.
And would that also apply to the reference you have for 22,000 insulation installers?
Yes, sir. That's the reason, again, the Silver Star program was structured in a way so that those existing small businesses, again, as long as they are properly licensed and insured, can participate immediately.
In your testimony, you indicate 168,000 jobs would be anticipated to be created. 3 million homes would be retrofitted. Is this based on an estimate of $6 billion in funding over 2 years?
Yes, sir.
And what are the assumptions underlying the estimate that 3 million homes would be retrofitted?
We can follow up with the written reports. We used the reports from ACEEE and ClimateWorks, who relied heavily on the McKinsey study and other published works to come up with those estimates. But the HomeStar Coalition would be happy to submit the detail.
Governor, as far as job creation in the manufacturing sector is concerned, what impact would a fully implemented HomeStar program have in comparison to new home construction returning to pre-recession levels?
Well, I don't know what the new home construction gets back to. I said 100 in my testimony. If we got back to where we were, maybe there's an additional 128,000 jobs. I mean, these are all estimates. Could HomeStar, if we suddenly are able to reach 3 million homes, you get a lot of impact. It's not all right in manufacturing, because there's a lot of it in the service sector as well that is dependent on manufacturing, and manufacturing is dependent on service people being busy so we can make products for them. I don't have a hard number on that.
Are there any other programs you would like to see included, or does HomeStar exclude any beneficial energy efficient products or improvements for the home?
The committee draft has, there were some concerns on some of the do-it-yourself work that could be done. There's been some modification, I think, that recognizes some of that. And as I think Mr. Thaman testified, there's in the Silver Star, there's things that can get done very quickly. In the Gold Star, you're pretty much wide open to. I mean, if you want to do an entirely new HVAC, new water heaters, new whatever, it's all there for that. So I think it's done a pretty good job. I realize, I mean, the tension is we'd like to move quickly to get this gone. In fact, I'd like to see the agency commit to 30 days to be done. I don't know what their minimums are, but it shouldn't take 60 days of government work to write a simple rule for a statute. It's pretty straightforward. That ought to be, the draft ought to be done now at the agency, so the minute it's signed, the rules filed, that we could accelerate this, because we got to get away from government time and go to private sector time, which is much, much more aggressive.
Well, the do-it-yourself, Mr. Thaman, provision in the latest bill draft is $250. Do you know how much the cost for installation of an average home this would cover?
I'll turn to Mr. Thaman. We've got an expert sitting next to me on that one.
Again, it's going to depend whether you have an installation contractor come in and install the product for you or not. But in a typical home, if you were to go and buy a product at a big box retailer and bring enough product home to restore at least the attic portion of your home to today's energy codes, certainly for $800 or $1,000, you could buy enough product to bring your attic up to code. So we would expect with the $250 rebate that's a pretty good size incentive to encourage people to want to go do that project.
I think I've gone over time.
Great.
Sorry.
Gentleman's time has expired. No problem. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Vermont, Mr. Welsh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Engler, or Governor Engler, I did some careful research about your background before this hearing, and I understand you're a Republican.
Well, I was certainly elected that way 10 times.
Well, what I want to ask you is, you're here supporting a program that's advanced by a Democratic administration. It's being advanced by some of our best manufacturers and environmentalists. It's supported by management and labor, by home builders and homeowners. Do you get nervous being in that company, or should we take this as a suggestion that maybe this is a good idea?
Well, look, last time I checked, with 10% unemployment rate, we get a lot of unemployment for Republicans and Democrats. There's enough to go around out there. So we'd like to put people back to work. We think this does that. And from the manufacturing perspective, we just want to see things put in place that will work quickly and get us back on a road to recovery. There's simply not enough demand in the country.
And that's the point, and I really do very much appreciate you being here. The other question that is legitimately raised is always about details about practical implementation. And I just asked this of the panel. This is intended to be designed so it's simple. You're relying on our local our manufacturers like Owens Corning and Masco that are already in this work but need more demand. You're relying on contractors who are not building homes but know how to retrofit homes, so we don't have to do all kinds of training. And we're relying on homeowners who are going to have skin in the game. And if I get a $1,500 rebate or prebate, but I have to put $1,500 of my own money in, as a card-carrying free market Republican, do you have some confidence that I'm going to make certain that if I put $1,500 in, the taxpayer puts $1,500 in, I'm going to want to get not $3,000 but maybe $4,000 worth of value?
There's no question about that. That's exactly right. And this is very different than one of the members asked a question about weatherization earlier. I mean, if this were going to be running through cap agencies, I'd be here opposing it.
Right.
This is not going to do that. This is going to go to the private sector.
Yeah, it's private sector, it's private homeowner. And Mr. Lassiter and Mr. Thaman, does this create hassles for you, this program? Sometimes programs come up and they have all kinds of strings attached and burdens imposed on you, or does this allow you to be more successful just by doing what you do, but do more of it?
Yeah, I think the strength of the HomeStar Coalition was having the broad input from industry, labor, environmental groups, and National Association of State Energy Officials. So a lot of players who have done this for many years with a heavy focus on the industry. This program is simple for the customer. The consumer gets an instant rebate. It's going to be simple for the contractor. They fill out a form to send to get their money back, and that's one of the reasons this thing's going to work.
Right. And
I mean, Congressman Welch,
yeah.
in my testimony, I said that it's important that this be simple, it be meaningful, and it be direct. I think one of the key things here is homeowner education. And if we give the private sector an incentive to get out there and market the idea
right.
and sell the idea, I think you're going to get a multiplier effect as opposed to having a government agency try to do it.
And Mr. Pratt, we got the workforce out there that wants to get to work?
Yes, and we have an opportunity to use our existing 800 home builders associations to do training if that's
okay. And
needed.
you know, Secretary Zoe, I do know that you've heard from these folks and others that simplicity is the key here. That partnership between the public and the private, using what we have, not reinventing something new to do something that needs to be done, and we know how to do it. Governor Engler suggested speed is of the essence, and simplicity is of the essence. My sense is that you're very committed to speed and simplicity, and I just wish you would comment on that.
Well, absolutely. And I've spent about half my career in the private sector trying to get things done quickly, and government's not always famous for that. This program has been designed to utilize and harness the very strong presence and knowledge of all of these sector experts that are in the private sector now, and to leverage the marketing capability that I think, as Michael just mentioned. So we absolutely have this in mind. We only should do this if we can do it quickly, and we can do it quickly.
Okay, well, I'd look forward to working with my colleagues on trying to address whatever suggestions they have to make this simpler and more efficient. I yield back. Thank you.
Great. Gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Shimkus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as I start, we have our fine technician working on our thermostat right here, perfectly timed. Wave to everybody. Oh, sorry. So it's great timing. Maybe we can cool
it's
down.
Like a very old-fashioned thermostat.
That's right. We need some government money to do that. And it's great to follow my friend and colleague Peter Welch, who's been working very diligently on this. I also find it curious when a progressive really takes a free market competitive stance. I think what Republicans and conservatives are worried about right now is our national debt, all-consuming, above everything else. 2009, our budget was $3.2 trillion. Our deficit was $1.3 trillion, and our debt was $12.3 trillion. 2010, our budget was $3.3 trillion. Our deficit $1.3 trillion, and our debt was $14.5 trillion. That's debt. This year, we've got a $3.4 trillion budget, projected $1.65 trillion deficit, and a debt that's going to hover around $15.7 trillion. So a lot of the concerns that we have over here is how will we pay for this? And does anyone on the panel want to suggest how we're going to do that?
The President has suggested previously paying for this out of TARP. Their funds.
And wasn't the TARP legislation additionally passed that would go down to pay down the debt?
And I guess I would suggest that
was that what the law says on the TARP fund? Correct. Right now, the answer is yes. So that's not an answer. That's taking legislation that we had designed to pay down the debt as the TARP funds got paid back, and now using it to fund another program, which is not solving the problem of a pay-for.
I think this is part of a jobs proposal, and I think what we find ourselves in is that the economy still needs.
So you're not predicting a pay-for this.
I think that the Congress should work out with the administration the best way to pay for this.
Okay, so you want to pay for this.
We want the bill to be passed so that we can get these people back to work.
Do you want this paid for or not?
I think that we'd like to.
Or do you want to go into further debt? That's the question. I mean, you're from the administration. Do you want this paid for, or do you want us to go and continue debt and deficit spending?
I think that we'll need to have conversations to work this out together.
Do you know that on the House side we have pay-for legislation? Would you think that's important for us to continue to abide by our pay-go rules now in the House, that this be fully paid for?
I think that's a matter for your consideration.
Okay. The administration has no position on whether this should be paid for or not.
We'd like to work with you to get the bill passed.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to talk about whether national debt is something to be concerned
Sure.
about?
I'll take a piece of this. I mean, you've got to realize that the department here is on the spending side. You have to, Mr. Orzag and the budgeteers in here, I guess. But from the manufacturing perspective, there are a number of things that we ought to do as a nation that would be both useful in terms of having a growth strategy and, I think, important to reduce the debt. I'll throw one where there's $60 billion of exports riding on fixing the export control laws that are antiquated in this country. We could export more high technology goods. We ought to do trade policy more effectively, and there's a lot of jobs there. I think we also need to look at, as people go back to work and are working, the economy is growing. There's actually more taxes than even in the 90s. If we look, it was really economic growth that had a big contribution, as well as fiscal spending restraint that happened. And I think when you've got the unemployment rate at double-digit levels where we are today, that these kind of programs ought to be looked at as how many people go back to work, how many taxes they'll pay, and how that fits in. But there's a whole host of other things that I would do.
And let me finish with this, Governor, and I appreciate your position and the comments. There is a lot of uncertainty out there in America today, especially in the manufacturing sector. Does movement to energy legislation or climate legislation provide more or less certainty in the manufacturing sector?
It's helpful because energy security is very important to manufacturing.
What about climate?
Well, I think it's helpful in showing that there are market-oriented solutions that will work.
What about the increased cost of energy that will be passed along to the manufacturing sector?
This actually helps reduce that.
Now, I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about climate legislation.
Well, we have a number of issues with Chairman on when we get to that question, and hopefully.
Well, that's why we have you here. We get a chance to ask you about these all pressing issues.
I'm happy to spend time on that if you
I know you are.
want to go there.
My time's expired. Thank you.
I thank you, Governor. You did not have an answer to my extraneous question, so thank you for not having an answer to Mr. Schumm, because you're very consistent in your testimony.
I realize who's chairing, Mr. Chairman.
I know you have an answer to both of them, actually, but thank you for staying on point here. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Barrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just following up on the theme that's been raised several times about how to make this as low maintenance, as user-friendly as possible. What will the customer, the taxpayer, the homeowner actually experience? What will the experience be like for the man or the woman that we're asking to basically, we're trying to get to nudge in this direction? Because as Mr. Welch has pointed out, folks are going to have some skin in the game. And we want to give folks an encouragement, a proper encouragement. We don't want to discourage them with something that is bureaucratic, involves a hassle, involves making them think about things that actually try and get in the way of doing what's even in their rational best interest, to use a behavioral economic type approach to this problem. Who can describe what the experience is going to be like for the customer? What are the things they get to consider, and what's it going to be like? And especially comparing and contrasting this with another approach, let us say a tax credit approach, which I think has certain advantages, but also certain disadvantages in terms of encouraging folks to do things right away, giving them the feedback, the positive feedback right away. Who wants to take a hand? Ms. Lasser, would you like to take a stab at that?
I'm happy to give an answer. As a contractor serving customers, we go in the home today. We do proposals today, as general contractors, big and small, do every single day in America. And under this program, we can add a line item that will say, here is your instant rebate under the HomeStar program, and subtract that amount so the customer pays the total minus the instant rebate to us. That's the customer experience. There's not a research, do I qualify for the tax credit? I have to pay you now and go out of pocket, and I get my tax credit back next year.
Hopefully.
That decision making is a point of sale from the homeowner's perspective. When they're buying, they're purchasing, they're getting an instant rebate, and that's the difference that will really drive some consumer demand.
How about for the retailer, the manufacturer, the folks who are coming up with the materials to be sold and installed? What's the experience like for them?
Yeah, from the perspective of the supply chain after that, as a contractor, I submit my paperwork to get my instant rebate. That's applied directly to, again, contractors big and small who participate in the program. And then we buy through distribution channels that may be at retail, they may be direct, they may be through distributors that are in the marketplace for these different products and services. So the money just goes all the way up the supply chain that exists today.
And from an Owens Corning perspective, as is the case, I think, of most of the manufacturers, the nature of our business would not change dramatically in terms of how we invoice or get reimbursed by our customers. Hopefully it would change because there'd be more demand. And obviously with our distinctive pink brand and our brand name, we talk to homeowners all the time. We talk to retailers all the time. I think you'd expect companies like ours to be very aggressive about helping promote these ideas and get homeowners to understand that for a limited time, they have an opportunity to do something good for their home, good for their energy bill, and good for the environment.
Thank you. And with that, Mr. Chairman, in the interest of letting some others have some of the time remaining, I'll yield back the balance of my time.
Great. We thank the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Griffith.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I was late coming back in, but the suppliers of the windows and other materials, those we heard that they were going to be mostly American manufacturers. And is there any way to ensure what percentage that might be, or is that germane? Is that an important question?
Well, I can start by talking about the insulation industry. I mean, insulation is kind of uniquely U.S.-centric because it's a very lightweight, low-value product, and so you can't ship it very far. So the nature of the product is we make fiberglass insulation. Our input materials are sand. Our sand suppliers and our batch suppliers are very close by to us. We manufacture close to the market. Our trucking firms are very close to us. Our contractors live in the communities in which they install. So we see a supply chain that begins and ends right in the United States without any need for any intervention to say this needs to be U.S.-based.
Thank you.
Specifically on windows, the window door manufacturers were in town this week and all over the Capitol. But that again is the kind of product, given its weight, it's actually being produced in many, many states close to the markets. It's not something that you ship from across the world here for the domestic door window, the windows in particular.
Thank you. I agree completely. Where are the most obvious areas for abuse of this program? Would it be in the contractor? Would it be in the invoicing? Is there any competition for a customer to get a second bid on the cost? How does that work?
What we intend to set up is a system that does not allow rebates or double rebates. So again, what the limiting factor will be one eligible measure per address, and the system, if it gets submitted, we won't accept double claims. So again, you can design that with modern IT to not allow it. I mean, just as if you're online shopping and you haven't filled out a field, you get a little red signal. It's like, 234 Main Street has already gotten an efficient water heater through this program. They can't do it. So again, we're going to set up a system that doesn't allow that.
And if I may, from a customer's perspective, this is a market-based program. The customer can shop as many general contractors as they would like to shop to get the best price before they decide to do the home improvement. So again, we think the strength of the program is it's so market-based.
I appreciate those answers, and that they're comforting, and I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. I yield back my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from California, Ms. Capps.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before I begin, may I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record two statements, each in favor of the HomeStar and lead renovation rule?
Without objection.
One is from the Laborers International Union of North America, and the other is from the American Public Health Association.
Without objection, so ordered.
As you know, Mr. Chairman, in 1992, this committee held hearings on a serious problem. hundreds of thousands of children being harmed by exposure to lead, which damages the development of the brain and nervous system. This committee took action and passed the Lead Exposure Reduction Act on a bipartisan vote of 39-4. That legislation reduced lead hazards in a number of ways, including by requiring EPA to identify lead-safe remodeling and renovation practices and to make sure that contractors were trained in these lead-safe practices. Now, almost 20 years later, EPA has developed these common-sense rules, and they will finally go into effect next month. Mr. Pratt, you have suggested in your testimony that these long overdue projections for children's health should be further delayed in conjunction with the HomeStar program. And I find this particularly very troubling. I wonder if you're aware that the EPA and Centers for Disease Control estimate that 1 million American children are now exposed to harmful levels of lead that damage the development of their brains and nervous systems, often irreparably.
Yes. The point that I was trying to make was that there's 14,000 contractors.
Let me get to that in a second, but thank you. Are you aware that the first year it is in effect, the lead rule is expected to shield 1.4 million children under the age of 6 from hazardous lead dust?
Yes.
Mr. Pratt, your testimony states that EPA has not certified enough contractors to comply with the lead renovation rule, and your testimony asserts that fewer than 14,000 contractors have been trained to date. Mr. Pratt, I understand that committee staff spoke with EPA yesterday. Did you know that based on updated information, the EPA estimates that 50,000 individuals have now been trained to date at more than 3,100 courses? Are you aware that EPA estimates that at least 100,000 individuals will be trained by the time the rule goes into effect next month?
No, I was not, but I would modify my written testimony if that's what's needed.
Thank you. Let me just wind up then. Thank you. Your testimony states that there are no training providers in several states, and I want to clarify that many of the training providers do travel from state to state, and these traveling providers have traveled to states that do not have fixed-site trainers. For example, despite the absence of a fixed-site training entity, hundreds of renovators have been trained in Louisiana already. And I'm going to close by just saying, Mr. Chairman,
you have 2 minutes left.
I know, but I want to make a statement. I appreciate Mr. Pratt's acknowledgement that maybe we need to update, the numbers that we have according to the latest figures that we're able to get. But I, for one, strongly oppose the notion of delaying this lead rule. I don't believe it's right, and I don't believe it's necessary. I believe taxpayer dollars should not go to projects that permanently damage children. And I don't accept that we need to sacrifice our kids' health in order to put people back to work and save energy. And with that, I yield back my time, Mr. Chair.
Thank the gentlelady. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas. I think it's the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Burgess. Yes.
Is it me? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Zoe, one of the little magazines that we all get up here all the time last week had some numbers from your department about what had been received in stimulus funds and what had actually been spent. Presumably that was public information that was put out by the Department of Energy. How have you done on spending the money that you got from the stimulus bill last year?
We are in a really good spot now. We're ramping up. Some of the shovel-ready projects took a little longer to get the shovels in the ground, based in part because of the design of the program and the design of the statute. Just to take a few that are under my portfolio, the Weatherization Assistance Program now.
Ms. Zoe, can I just sit? Yeah. Thank you.
How about that?
Good.
The Weatherization Assistance Program now is nearly at its full ramp rate of about 20 to 25,000 homes a month. The state energy programs, that's a $3.2 billion program where the money was obligated to the states at the end of September. The structure of the program, and a third of the money, $1 billion, is out in awards.
Yeah, I'd hate to interrupt, but obviously my time is limited. The chairman is very strict with me.
Not today. Whatever you want. We'll just be reminded.
$823 million has been spent as of the March 4 figures that were available of the appropriated $25 billion. And we've got a bill in front of us that has essentially a blank check written in the back. We appropriate such sums as are necessary. Why would you need any additional money at all when you have $25 billion waiting to be used? Why not use that money first before coming and asking they were described yesterday, the feckless appropriators for an additional $6 billion?
The programs have obligated, I think, $25 billion of the $36 billion that came to the Department of Energy. So that's all either under contract, out at the state level, workers have been hired. The figures that show up as spent don't show up as spent in the federal system until the federal government gets invoiced by the grantee, and in many cases it's a state or it's a private, it's a university or it's a private company. So the actual costing figures, which is in everyday parlance money spent, that lags in terms of actually the work being done. So we do not have available to us whatever number of billions of dollars because the vast majority of that has already been obligated to good projects that are out in the field creating jobs right now.
The stimulus bill was passed in February with a great deal of rapidity without time to read the bill because it was so important to get the money out there. But now here we are 13 months later, and only a small portion of the money that you had available has actually been delivered to projects that are putting people back to work. How do we have confidence that providing additional money to your department is going to be utilized any more efficiently than the large amount of money that you already received?
Well, again, first of all, there are thousands of jobs that have been created, and that money is already being put to work. So for the state energy program, for example, $1 billion is already under contract at the state level creating jobs. Now, those states have not invoiced the federal government, so it's not showing up as spent. But the work is getting done. Private sector people, state people have been hired to get that work done. Secondly, the structure of this program is going to move even more quickly, I would guess, depending on what the market demand is, than Cash for Clunkers did. And Cash for Clunkers...
please don't mention Cash for Clunkers in this committee.
But to your point of is there a spending bottleneck...
That's not a good metric.
It depends on the structure of the program.
Listen, none of us are against energy efficiency, but this should be driven by the market. I know of two electric companies back in my district, one which is providing a credit to homeowners if they want to put solar equipment on their homes. Another, which is really a forward-leaning project, will allow homeowners to rent the equipment. The electricity company is providing the capital, and the homeowner rents the equipment and sells the electricity back because we do have net metering in Texas. Those are great programs. This is something that should sell itself. We shouldn't have to go in debt billions of more dollars to foreign countries in order for these programs to happen because they're a good idea. People want to do this. And when they find out the amount of money, I have no quarrel with people putting solar panels on their roof. I think in Texas it makes a lot of sense. We primarily use a lot of electricity during the summertime. We need our air conditioners. I'm all for putting lots of solar panels on lots of roofs, and let's not build another coal-fired plant. I think that's a good idea. But it sells itself. Why is it necessary to pump money into what seems to be a fairly inefficient bureaucratic pipeline that takes 13 months to get deliverables out to the other side? It seems like the marketplace could move much more rapidly on this. That's just an observation. One other thing, in the newspapers in Texas, the business section of the Dallas Morning News a few weeks ago detailed this large wind farm that was going to go into West Texas with stimulus money, and they were buying Chinese windmills. Now, what's up with that? We've got a windmill blade manufacturer in Gainesville, Texas. Why didn't we buy American blades for that?
Well, we haven't seen the proposal for that project. The 1603 program, I think, to which you're referring, again, has created already 10,000 construction jobs, 2,000 ongoing jobs.
In China?
Nope, in the United States. Those jobs are in the United States. The wind, and I agree with you, the wind blade manufacturing capability has grown significantly. A few years ago, the wind industry, the domestic content in the U.S. wind industry is probably about 25 to 35%. It's now, because of all the work that's being done, it's now over 53%. And with the 48C program that we talked about a little earlier in this hearing, we are investing in the ability to manufacture gearboxes. At the moment, wind gearboxes are not manufactured in the United States because we haven't had policies to support it. But all of that is coming. We are on a trend line here to rebuild and catalyze the renewable energy industry that is incredibly important for creating jobs across this country.
I know in the interest of time, let us get you that article. It was in the business section of the Dallas Morning News last month. And I'd like to, if you don't mind, we'll submit that to you and see if we can get your comments about what was contained within that article. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence. I'll yield back.
We thank the gentleman very much. And the Dallas Morning News is actually going to host about 25,000 people at the Wind Convention in a couple more months. So, well, there is, and they're turning it into money. So let me turn now and recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. McNerney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just address the issue that the gentleman from Texas raised. I spent my career developing wind energy technology only to see that technology go overseas because there wasn't sufficient support in this country. So the jobs that we should have been creating are being created in China, they're being created in Germany, because they are putting windmills in that country like crazy. And we need to change that and create those jobs here. Back to the question at hand. My district has sections that are very hard hit by the economy. And what I like to see is some mechanism in this legislation or this program that would help implement this sort of process in hard-hit areas. My concern is that people that are marginal economically aren't going to be interested in investing $1,500 without some sort of incentive that makes it possible. Additional training, for example, or other methods to get those homes that probably need it more than any other homes to be insulated and become more efficient. Do you have any suggestions or ideas that would be beneficial in that light? I'll let the Secretary.
Well, just quickly, one of the terrific things about the bill is that there's a provision for financing, local finance, and there are a variety of ways to provide finance to make it possible for folks who do not have that money in their bank account to be able to take advantage of this. And the whole theory is that you borrow a little bit of money, but the savings on your energy bills will allow that to be paid back. So again, I would commend that provision of the bill in particular.
Okay. Mr. Pratt?
The training program that HBI has come up with has trained disadvantaged people definitely in the weatherization program. I've instructed hundreds of people on the installation of weatherization. Most of those people are disadvantaged in some variety, to the point where people ask me if they can return the bottles to get the bus ride so they can come back the next day. It's very imperative that this program not necessarily just be a certification program where you certify contractors, that you're actually speccing the weatherization training that's going on instead of just the specific certification that someone gets from it.
Well, that's a good point. A concern I have is that if there's a program that gets ramped up too quickly, there won't be enough people out there that know how to do what they need to do. Walking into a house and making an assessment of what needs to happen to make the house more efficient, it's not rocket science necessarily, but it needs training, it needs certification. Are we going to be able to ramp up enough people to meet those needs if this program moves forward?
This program in front of you, this program here, not necessarily the HomeStar program in itself, but this program right here specs a level of training that's designed for the 6th, 7th, 8th grader level of knowledge to be able to confer and install the products. That's what it was designed for, is workforce training, not just a certification program.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, the certification programs that are currently in the bill, they also have training outlets. In fact, where the President announced some of the details at Savannah Technical Community College, there are training outlets like that everywhere where these kind of rigorous training people will receive that gives them the skills they need to actually get their certification. So the additional certifications can happen quickly.
Okay.
The only thing I'd add to that is that you know, as governor for 12 years, I worked in a lot of hard-hit areas. I currently also serve on the Annie Casey Foundation board, so we work with communities that are hard-hit. When we start reducing the unemployment rate, you should start with the people who most recently were detached from the workforce, and you work your way down. Those that are hardest hit, who haven't worked in 10 years, will be the last to be hired. And they're the ones that need the very low minimum wage or the differential wage to be hired to get some connection. That was the way it worked with welfare reform. And sometimes we try to do policy to get the hardest possible person to work first. And that's just expensive and wasteful, and it will fail. In this case, we've got millions of Americans who had jobs who aren't working. They can go right back to work. They're the ones you train first. And as we get the economy moving, there are more resources left to try to deal with the chronic situations that you've just described. And as far as investing, the other policy decision that's in this bill, which I think the committee has made, I hope, is that energy savings are energy savings. And when we reduce kilowatt consumption, wherever we save that kilowatt, McKinsey's argument was get the most cost-effective savings first. Harvest, as Secretary Chu has said, the fruit on the ground, or the low-hanging fruit first before we get on the tall ladder and try to reach the top of the tree. And I think this is saying let's get it where we can find it. And so I worry, you know, and I realize I don't have to get elected anymore, but I worry less about where we get it than how much we can get in terms of kilowatt savings.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Great, gentleman's time's expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like first to ask unanimous consent to have a statement by the National Association of Realtors inserted in the record outlining their position on this legislation. Mr. Chairman? And unanimous
Without
consent.
objection. Yeah.
All right, thanks. And I think you have a copy and you've seen it before. Ms. Zoe, a question always comes up. Sometimes a bill passes and there becomes technical language that changes everything. Can you say today categorically that there will be no labeling requirement that would be part of this bill if it passed? Do you feel comfortable saying that there would be no labeling?
Can you tease that out?
Yeah, I think the problem would be is like in a cap and trade, there was a portion of the bill that actually put a label on the house to say that it was not complying with energy efficient requirements. It had different things. It was given a rating. And so this label created in the minds of the homeowner that, one, his home was worth less, and in the person who was buying it, it was discounted. So you get this sort of stigma attached to a house or a property. So we're concerned that if this bill passes, that there would be some kind of understanding by you and your people in the administration that you'd put a label on a house. So I'm hoping you'll say today that there'll be no labeling requirement.
I don't think that the nature of this bill is about
So the answer is
voluntary program where people go and take advantage of energy efficient technologies that get installed in their home.
okay. So your answer is no, for the record. Okay. The other thing, I have a question for you. In the bill, the White House indicates that the number of homes improved under the HomeStar program could be 3 million. I just flipped through here the notebook they gave me, and it appears that when you went to weatherize a home, that in 1 year they got a maximum across all 50 states was 125,000 is all. How did you come up with, what's the source of that estimate that you'll get 3 million when the facts just for weatherization was only 125,000?
Yeah, I think that this is a different sort of program. So the calculations are done based on projecting what would be the average rebate that a consumer would take advantage of. How big is the pot of money available for Silver Star rebates and Gold Star rebates? How big do we, what's the average rebate amount? And that's the number of transactions that we've got. So if indeed, again, the Senate version has nominated, you know, $3 billion or so for the Silver Star program. You figure each house will take advantage of, you know, one measure, 1.2 measures, like 1.2 children. Then you just do the math. So you're able to reach that many more homes than the weatherization assistance project, which was I think you're referring to, where they go and do kind of a whole home retrofit for low-income folks up to the tune of anywhere between $4,500 and $6,500 per home. The average investment per home under this is likely to be lower, therefore more homes will get done.
My colleague, Mr. Shimkus, had mentioned how we're going to pay for this. The President has talked about freezing a very small portion of the discretionary spending. Perhaps across the board, spending freeze would help pay for this, or even some kind of freezing with government employees. We've seen a lot of articles recently about everybody's taking a sacrifice, but not necessarily government employees, and so that's possibly one way to help pay for this. The other thing I'm concerned about is that the way you have it in this rebate program, it might be more effective and, shall we say, less bureaucratic, that you wouldn't have to use all these formulas if you had a tax credit. And I think this has been brought up before. Are you receptive to a tax credit rather than a rebate?
Well, there is an existing...
Just yes or no?
Just yes. An existing tax credit. And we have an opportunity now to harmonize job creation immediately with energy savings for families. So I think this program will have an immediate catalyzation of a big part of the sector.
Let me read this other question. It's a little long. The bill doesn't allow taxpayers to receive both an energy efficient, that's Section 25C, tax credit and a rebate. How will you know whether a Section 25C tax credit has been applied for regarding a HomeStar product? Is the Department of Energy going to check the IRS records? Is the IRS going to check the DOD records? Are we just going to assume that no one would be so nefarious or simply confused as to claim a credit for an item for which a rebate was received?
I think we would never assume Americans would be nefarious. But
that's a safe answer.
No, what happens is this is an instantaneous point-of-sale rebate. Those records would then be provided to the IRS. Plus, it would be tax fraud if taxpayers tried to apply for both. So we would have the records, and then we would provide our records to the IRS.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your questions. I assume as we go down that you as a chairman will probably find a way to pay for this so that we don't add to the deficit. So I'd be curious if perhaps you might enlighten us how we're going to pay for this.
Well, in your own personal instance, I think it will probably be your winnings from the NCAA pool that you've just filled out. Okay, I think there you'll be able to make your perhaps $300. Huh?
They won't be that much, but
anyway, the gentleman's time has expired. I'd like to submit for the record testimony from Steve Nadell from the Americans for Energy Efficient Economy that outlines the technical specifications in HomeStar as well as the job numbers. Without objection, so included. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Washington State, Mr. Inslee.
Thank you. Thanks for the coalition work on that. This is has got such fantastic upside for us, both short-term and long-term. We really appreciate all of your efforts. Congratulations, Governor Engler. The first lithium-ion manufacturing plant in America is going to go into Michigan and Holland, Michigan, because of the stimulus bill. We're going to have to give you some credit for that somewhere along the line. And thanks to Mr. Welch for his leadership on this issue. I want to ask a couple questions about those who might be skeptical a little bit about this proposal. I am really not, but I would like you to address some concerns that have been raised. The first one about having the division between silver and gold in general, silver being a compensation system for specific entities and gold being more performance-based. So I guess the first question I have is what would we say to those who think everything should be performance-based and we shouldn't have $1 of taxpayer money invested until we have a specific performance of X percentage for every single house?
I'd be happy to address that. In my testimony, I referenced the McKinsey study, and I think others on this panel did also, which looked at carbon emissions and also energy efficiency and rated insulation, which is the product we manufacture as the most energy efficient. One of the things you need to understand in rankings like that is cost of inspections and cost of audits are not factored into that analysis. So the assumption, which I think is a good assumption, given our contractor base and the people we work with, is that good, honest, hardworking people are going to install products correctly, and that products installed correctly for their intended use save energy. And we know that that's the case with the insulation products that we manufacture. If we get too prescriptive in terms of specifying inspections and audits as a part of trying to make the economics of this program work, you actually destroy the economics of the products to save energy because of the additional costs. So I think this bill sought to find a balance between Silver Star type products, which are known to save energy for sure, and then Gold Star type projects where an inspector can come in and come out with a whole house approach to improving the energy efficiency of the home.
if I may add on the Gold Star side, as being a home performance contractor ourselves, these are proven technologies, proven models. We install many of these same proven measures. In fact, at our company, we're so certain that we actually provide a whole home energy savings limited guarantee for the homeowner, where we guarantee the first year energy savings. So one of the beauties in the balance is proven technologies immediately in the marketplace.
So I'll just tell you my observation. These are proven technologies. We have good data about them, about their effectiveness. However, we have to realize there will be some Americans who don't install them perfectly. They won't always work perfectly when they're installed. But my belief is the cost of trying to assess perfection is going to be greater than the loss of imperfection of those who have two thumbs and don't do the installation exactly perfectly. That's my sort of feeling about this, and that's why I think this is actually a pretty good balance that you've struck. Second question, the National Association of Home Builders had asked to recognize the Home Builders Institute as the certifying, or a certifying, I'm not sure which, entity for certifying workforces. That entity was not included. Is there a reason for that, and what should we be thinking about the certifying agencies?
I can say from the Department of Energy's perspective, we're quite interested and excited to have all qualified certifications be part of this thing, and we have suggested that the Secretary has the latitude to add more as more rating schemes and qualification schemes become available, but we're quite open to the HBI being part of this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just one comment. I was reading Dr. Chu's some testimony in some blog somewhere last night about efficiency. I've said this before, but I want to reiterate this. I hope you will unleash him in the coming weeks, particularly while the U.S. Senate is considering energy legislation, to really share what he knows about this field, particularly with the other chamber, because it is incredibly powerful. And I hope that you'll allow him to live in the U.S. Senate in the next several weeks. We need a 101st senator, and it should be one who knows the physics. And, you know, could be a second Nobel Prize out there somewhere, so I hope he's there. Thanks very much.
The gentleman's time has expired. Well, we thank all of you for being here. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to give each one of you your 1 minute. Give us your best shot here in 1 minute. What is it that you want this committee to do? A lot of people think that you know, energy conservation is like watching grass grow. How can that be exciting? You know, how can that be interesting? How can that be good for our country? How can that be the smart way of going? And so we'll give each one of you a minute to kind of summarize it, why the members of this committee, if they were all sitting here, would know why this is such an exciting subject and why they should, you know, invest the time to understand it and to explain it to the American people. So we'll begin with you, Mr. Pratt. We'll go in reverse order of the opening statements so that we can have each of you make your case to the American people.
Well, as an experienced trainer, as someone who's trained the workforce in this venue, I feel as though that opening up the marketplace to having multiple training organizations inside this program, allowing disadvantaged people to go through and get training. I do believe that the existing construction network, although has a lot of training, still needs to be reinforced with a lot of training. My encouragement is that we don't necessarily tie this program to a certification program, that we have multiple certification programs which are already existing out there and incorporated into the program.
All right. Can you up the excitement level, Mr. Thaman, in your concluding 1 minute?
I'll do my best, Chairman Markey. You know, we would say, as we've all said, that employment is very far down in the construction industry. We do not believe the economy is out of the woods, and we think it's important that this group take action to try to stimulate the economy and create additional jobs in our sector. People are trained. They're ready to come back onto the job. We're ready to employ them if there were demand. Creating demand for energy efficiency products is a great idea. It gets a hard-hit part of the economy back to work. It creates energy savings and money in the pocket of consumers. It reduces energy dependence. It reduces energy imports. It increases energy security. And it's one of the few energy policy moves that we have that is actual capital creating, as opposed to capital destroying, because it actually creates savings and creates consumption. We think a simple, meaningful, and direct incentive to homeowners to improve the energy efficiency of their home is good policy, and we support it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Thaman. Governor Engler.
Well, just following on Mr. Thaman's beautiful remarks, it's a win for jobs, it's a win for energy efficiency, it's a win for the overall American economy. And then it ought to be followed up, the work on this HomeStar legislation, with picking up the pace on initiatives the President's talked about that all can support. We need to get these transmission lines built in this country and rebuilt. That's free energy. It's being generated but lost in transmission. That's a simple revenue bond. We don't need government help to do that. We just need to clean up the process, put the EPA in the closet so we don't need NEPA on existing rights-of-ways. There are already power lines. Let's build the new ones. Let's get that done. Let's get the nuclear power industry going. To Mr. Burgess' point earlier, the supplier base was largely driven out because we weren't doing anything in a lot of these areas. And you start building nuclear power plants, we'll get that base back here. So there's a whole host of these kinds of things that in the energy space, all of which put Americans to work and reduce the emissions and reduce the energy intensity of the country.
Thank you, Governor Engler, very much. Mr. Lassiter.
Yes, sir, Chairman Markey. I'll start with two words: granite countertops. Okay, that's exciting. People, when they can, in this economy, when they can often get the money to do a home improvement.
If they were
project,
remaking the movie The Graduate today, that's what, they wouldn't be saying plastics. They'd be saying granite countertops.
So when people have the money to do a home improvement, they start thinking granite countertops. This program will put energy efficiency on sale for every American household. So instead of thinking granite countertops, they'll think energy efficiency. And that's the reason this program will work.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Lassiter.
I like that. I think we
Can you move in that microphone just a little bit?
I think we have a moment to create speed and scale in the efficiency sector. I don't know who's been at this longer, Chairman Markey or me, but we've been trying to make energy efficiency sexy for a long time. The truth is, though, last year only 40,000 non-low-income retrofits were done in this country, and it sounds like one of them was done at Mr. Burgess's house. What we need to do is create speed and scale, leverage the private sector. We have an alignment here that's unprecedented with private sector players, government players, federal players, state players, to stand this up so that we can get out of this and having building tune-ups becomes normal business for Americans going forward.
Thank you, Secretary Zoya, as well. Oh, sure. Gentleman from Texas.
My home was not a retrofit. It was new construction. It was all paid for with duly earned after-tax dollars. No federal program was involved.
You know what? You were right, but too soon for this program, okay? If you had just waited 40 years,
well, Mr. Chairman,
you too could.
Here's the problem, though, Congressman. In your district, you'll have to pay for a new power plant if everybody else doesn't get their homes cleaned up because the energy will run out someday, and I want to avoid that. It's cost avoidance.
And, Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, let me have a try at the 1 minute. Let's make efficiency appealing. Where else could you get Ed Markey, Mike Burgess, and Roscoe Bartlett on the same page? Energy efficiency is the common ground, whether you're worried about global warming, national security, or peak oil. This is where all of those come together. And no one on this committee, regardless of which side of the dais they sit on, can really make a coherent argument in favor of wasting energy.
I hope it would actually be, we would agree that we don't want Notre Dame to win the NCAA tournament, okay? There, Texas, and Boston College is going to agree on that, okay?
University of North Texas actually is in the
University of North Texas.
And they play in just an hour's time, so go Mean Green.
All right, well, you know what, I might change my, I've been filling out my NCAA tournament bracket up here. I might go to North Texas and pick that now. So here we are. We have this great opportunity to as we know, to instead of generating more megawatts, to have negawatts, to have the watts never have to be manufactured, constructed, built in the first place. And as Governor Engler said, that saves everybody money. It costs a lot of money to build one of these power plants, and your bills are lower. There are jobs created in helping people save the money, and we back out energy that we otherwise would have imported, home heating oil, or have in the construction of power plants across the country. So it is win-win-win, as Mr. Lassiter said. It is working smarter, not harder. My mother always used to say that to me, Eddie, work smarter, not harder. She would always say it after she said she was going to donate my brain to Harvard Medical School as a completely unused human organ. Okay, so I think this is the kind of program she was talking about, working smarter, not harder. When I was the chairman of the Energy Subcommittee here back in 1985 and 86, and I authored the Appliance Efficiency Act for refrigerators, stoves, you name it, all the way down the line. Well, there are scores of power plants that never had to be built because refrigerators are now twice as efficient as they were because of that law back in 1986. So you just think of every home with a refrigerator twice as efficient, or stove, or you go all the way down the line. So that's how we're thinking here. We're thinking, you know, there has to be a way in which we not just incentivize the importation of more oil from OPEC, which is half of our trade deficit, by the way. Half of our trade deficit is importing oil. Now, that can't be a good idea, given where a lot of those revenues then get spent against the interest of our country, affects our economy. Here, we have a homegrown industry. We have companies, we have contractors who are ready to go, with materials made in America, with contractors who live here in America, and with homeowners here in America who will be the beneficiaries. So that's about the best picture you can put on this. It's not made by OPEC, and it's not made in China. Made in the USA, for people in the USA, installed by people in the USA, and sold by people in the USA. So it seems to me that of all the tax programs that we've got on the books, this is one that will work magic on our economy, and the more that we can spread this ethic, this idea of working smarter, not harder, in terms of how we generate electricity in our country, is the better off we're going to be. And a perfect example, again, is this wind program. Last year, 10,000 new megawatts of wind installed in the United States. So if you think of a nuclear power plant as 1,000 megawatts, 10,000 new megawatts installed in our country last year, and half a million, 500 new megawatts of solar installed in the United States last year. That would be like half a nuclear power plant. Well, these are big numbers, as Secretary Zoe pointed out. That's 10,000 new jobs here in the United States. And the good news is that, as she pointed out, is that just 4 years ago, 25% of the jobs in the wind sector were in the United States, 75% overseas. Because of the stimulus program, we now have it up to 53% of the jobs. And the industry, in testimony last week, said that their goal by the end of the stimulus program is over 70 to 75% of the wind jobs will be totally generated here in the United States. Okay? So just changing the way in which we view how we produce energy or don't produce energy by installing insulation, by installing smarter new devices that are made here in the United States, sold here in the United States, installed here in the United States. That's the way we have to view this. And then we dramatically reduce the greenhouse gases by doing it all here in our country. We create new jobs, and we save on the imported energy that we have to bring into our country. So it is win, 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 win. This is something that should generate incredible enthusiasm from our members. You know, the reporting table should over here be excited at this smart new plan that is being put in place. And so our job is going to be to get out there, to sell this, to lift it up, along with these other energy technologies that are coming along here, made in America, as the governor said. You know, that should be our single most important objective this year, to begin to put in place a program that will sustain us in the long run. So what we would like to do, Mr. Welch, Mr. Waxman, and I, is work with the minority, work with all parties that are concerned about this issue, so that we can put it on a fast track. We can put it in place in a way that will give the benefits to people out there and give hope that new jobs will be created And as you said, Governor, not in 60 days, not in 90 days, but as soon as possible. Fast track this process. Put that gold star up there. And again, I think we should try to put a gold star. We label children with a gold star. We said, here are the students who are doing the best work. We label things in America. We have honor rolls that we want to have put in the newspaper. We don't want to stigmatize people who aren't on the honor roll, but we want to honor the people on the honor roll, don't we? Don't we want to let people know who's doing the best work? Don't we want to let people know who are the gold star students and the silver star students? Begins in the first grade. I think Americans are ready for this. Maybe we have too many trophies. Maybe it is like woe begone. Everyone is above average, but everyone's not above average. We need measurements. We need to have America be number one, looking over its shoulder at number 2 and 3 in the world in this sector, okay? Because we will then be manufacturing the jobs. We will then be producing the work opportunities in the years ahead for all those workers in our country. We thank you all. We want to work closely with you in the next couple of weeks so that we produce the best possible bill. So stay close to the subcommittee. We need you to call us, talk to us, visit us, let us know how we can frame this, because we have some ideas how to change it. I know you might too, and I think if we all work together, we'll be able to produce the best possible bill. Thank you. With that, this hearing is adjourned. Thank you.